What's up, comic friends? Welcome back to another beautiful new comic book day and another video of the Critical Pull List. As usual, I'm going to start off by going over last week's pulls, what I thought was good, bad, interesting, then take a look at what came out this week and a little peek at what's coming out next week. Let's get into it. Per usual, I'm going to toss up a screenshot of last week's pulls, and I'm going to start right off with my pick of the week for DC, which should come as no surprise, Absolute Martian Manhunter. Issue 11, the penultimate issue, by Denise Camp and Javi Rodriguez. It did not disappoint. What I like most about this is it is not just your typical superhero action-packed comic book. I mean, there's tons of action. It is that. But Denise Camp always manages to pull something into it that gets you thinking. And this week is something just amazing for me. I'm going to wax philosophical for a sec here. I did study philosophy back in school, so can't blame me too much. He does something that I never see. He brings in the concept of free will, which I just never see in any kind of media, really. It's very rare that I see people talking about it, and I think it's super important for our world perspective. And it's Despero, the kind of devil on John's shoulder. That's kind of the counter to the Green Martian, who's the good guy. And he makes a case, essentially, pretty convincingly, that free will does not really exist. And I agree. So to kind of summarize the debate about free will in philosophy, there's three main schools of thought. Two of them will be obvious to you. Free will exists. Free will doesn't exist. Everything is predetermined. And the third one is kind of, honestly, it's kind of a cope to me. That's what it seems like. But it makes sense too. I'll get into that a little bit. Pretty much the idea is that even though free will does not exist, there's still our will itself has its own desires and tendencies that we want to fulfill. And there's freedom from external sources that would prevent us from going after those goals. So there's kind of free will in that sense. We are a free will in a way. You are your will and should be free. A lot of philosophy is honestly kind of useless. It's good to expand your mind, to get rid of your biases and to think about the world in different ways, but a lot of it is just thought experiments and useless. But if you actually come to the conclusion that free will does not really exist, it changes how you view things in a pretty big way. It obviously doesn't mean that justice system goes out the window. It doesn't mean that we don't hold people accountable for their actions. It just means that you don't have to hate them for it. You don't have to hold these grudges against other people. And it gives grace for forgiveness for others and even for yourself. Gives you room to accept that you're not exactly to blame and they're not exactly to blame for everything. And you don't have to hold on to hate that way. One example I always like to talk about is imagine a tornado wrecks your house. Obviously, that's a terrible thing. You try to make a house that resists the tornado, but you don't go out and shake your fists at every tornado you see. You don't hate nature. You don't hate the wind because of what happened. It's kind of the same way. Human nature is nature. It's how things are. It's determined by your brain at birth and the actions that happen to you. There's nothing you can really do to control that. You can't pick your own brain or your body. If you could, I would have picked to be a super genius and as strong as Superman. Unfortunately, it's not how it works. You can't choose your will. You are your will, and it does what it does. It's interesting to see the argument in a really good way where he does it kind of going over someone that is on death row being executed, and he kind of goes through like, imagine if this had been different about his past and this and this and this, what might have happened then? He even talks about the judge. He says that the judges will give harsher judgments in cases when they haven't had breakfast. So this man went to death row because the judge didn't have breakfast that day. And this argument kind of sends John Jones like crazy, like he goes out of his mind. And it seems like that's something that happens a lot with people when they deal with this argument. People have a very visceral reaction against the idea that free will doesn't exist, as if our actions have no meaning, but that's not the case. We have to still act as though it does exist. But in terms of how we feel about others and ourselves, it gives us room for grace. I think it's interesting that it's Despero, who's kind of the bad guy, that is making this argument. But maybe he's not a bad guy. Maybe he's just another part of the Green Martian that's trying to teach him a lesson. I don't know. We'll see. But I hope it's not held up as the argument to go against for Denise Camp. But hopefully we see a little bit more about that in the next issue, because it was a pretty big part of this. I would like to see Jones dealing with that in the next issue a little bit at least. But this was awesome. I mean, the art was amazing. I can't say enough about that. Check it out. Check it out. Next up is Absolute Batman. Let me show you the back of this. Which, despite the cover, is not really that much about the Robins. They show up in the last couple of pages. They're a pretty sweet couple of pages, but hopefully we see more of them in the next issue. What is covered a lot is Batman's current mental state, who seems to be going through a bit of an identity crisis. He's not sure if he's having the impact on Gotham that he meant to, and if he's being a good role model. He also learns a bit about his past that indicates he may have been set up a long time ago to become what he's become. And there's a cool scene with a scarecrow too. Plus, Wayland goes around to Batman's friends and tries to convince them that Bruce needs their help. And we see a bit of his other friends turning to a life of crime potentially. But that's about it. It was a pretty sweet issue. Like always, Absolute Batman always crushes it. Next up is Fury of Firestorm issue 2. This was another pretty sweet issue. Not that much happens in current time, but we get a lot of a flashback into Ronnie's life growing up and how he met the professor and how they became fused into the Firestorm. And we see the inner battle he's having with whatever is taking over the body of Firestorm. And at the end, some heroes show up, won't say who, to probably fight Firestorm and get him under control, because he's pretty dangerous. Next up was Barbara Gordon Breakout. This is connected to the mainline Batman stuff and the crackdown by Savage on the Bat family. She is pretty cool in this. It's pretty much your standard prison tropes, though. She gets into fights and has to defend herself from getting jumped, stuff like that. It's pretty good, though, and I'm excited to see what happens. There's a bit of a cliffhanger at the end. Next up is Green Lantern Corps number 16. This was a really sweet issue, and a lot happens in this. Aya, who's a robot, has her body taken over by the Manhunters, and they use it to upgrade their systems and become much more dangerous. Their goal is to go after the emotional entities, gain control of them, and become the new guardians of the world instead of the Green Lanterns, because they're bitter about Oa choosing the Lanterns over them. So now there's a bit of a race to get after the emotional entities before the Manhunters do. I really like what's happening in this, and I will never get over Guy Gardner being in priestly robes. Way too cool. Last but definitely not least for DC is Bleeding Hearts issue 4. This continues with Poke's inner turmoil about what he's doing in helping these humans and his zombie nature. And we also see the flip side of that with the little girl and her mother, and how the mother is dealing with her child being so close and becoming friendly with a zombie. And at the end, we have a cliffhanger that puts them all in danger. So next issue will be sweet. I didn't have too much on my list for Marvel, just 3 books, but the one I liked the most was Iron Man issue 5. In this issue, we see Iron Man getting out of the situation he was in last issue, and we see him coming to terms with his nightmare and figuring out what he believes he needs to do in order to overcome this. He realizes that it wasn't just him in that cave that created Iron Man. It was also the other scientist that was imprisoned with him, I forget his name. And he realizes a lot of other people in his past helped him out as well. And he thinks that it's time for him to pass that along as well. And he starts to train and teach the other geniuses that were captured as part of AIM's nightmare program to make another Tony Stark. At the end, we have a big reveal about a potential bad guy too that is going to try to take over AIM. So this is getting pretty interesting. Next up, we've got Captain America issue 11. This has been a really good series. The only thing I really miss right now is Colton, who was introduced in the first arc. But in this issue, we have Captain America trying to save Victor Von Doom's clone from the Red Hulk, a guest appearance from Sam Wilson, and at the end, big spoiler warning, Captain America dies and goes to hell. Yeah, hell. So this is getting pretty interesting. Last for Marvel is Amazing Spider-Man Venom Death Spiral Body Count number 1. This is connected to the Death Spiral event, which I did read all of it, and I really liked it. This does a good job of showing you how Torment came to be, and at the end introduces potentially either a hero or a villain to be determined. It was good though. Now for my pick of the week for indie comics, Megalith, the Olympus Saga number 1. It's about this giant obelisk that lands in the middle of the city, and the main character is a cop who helps a search and destroy team get inside to figure out what's going on and hopefully blow it up or something. It's just really well paced, and it feels like I'm watching a movie when I'm reading this. And it sets up a pretty good issue too, I think. So I'm pretty curious to see what happens. It's a good read if you're curious about it. Next up is Archie vs. the Army of Darkness #4. This continues to just be way better than I expected and does a perfect job of doing Ash's voice. It just feels like you're watching the movie or a TV show. I wish they would bring that back. Next up is the Ting's Pick of the Week, which is Dork #4. This was yet another really great issue. We see some really good action, of course, and some hilarious scenes with some goblins that show up that are kind of two tribes in a feud over who gets to kill this giant dog that destroyed their village. But what really elevates this issue is a very emotional scene with Dork dealing with how he doesn't really belong anywhere and how he's not sure whether he's a good person. And we get a nice kind of pep talk from the Shield to kind of bolster his spirits, and it's a pretty touching scene. Now we've got Dungeons & Dragons The Fallbacks #4. This is a really good fast-paced issue, probably because I think it's the penultimate issue, so they need to wrap things up soon. We see the party struggling with their new temporary roles as guardians of the kingdom, dealing with the corruption of the position and how they can't help the people that are actually being oppressed by the kingdom. Eventually the party cracks and ends up fighting the kingdom to free those oppressed kobolds, and in the process they learn that the kobolds, while they are enslaved and being oppressed, they are trying to free the dragon so that it can go and attack and destroy the city so that they'll be safe. So they have a bit of a choice to make there in terms of what they're going to do, and potentially might have to fight the kobolds who they just helped. Pretty interesting and very, very D&D-ish. So well done on that. Last for the indies, we have Geiger #23. This was a really heartbreaking issue because Geiger is reunited with his family. He's literally holding them, hugging them, crying like crazy, and then he just gets teleported out by whoever is in charge of that. What happens next is Geiger and Northerner pick up a phone in the room, and it's the time travel people, and they start grilling them and asking them questions. And the time travel people seem to be trying to save their own timeline, but they don't really care about, stopping atrocities or anything. It almost seems like they're from the future, so they don't want to change the past and ruin their current positions or something. Then we have the Northerner gets taken away and the time traveling tank, and Geiger gets attacked by, I forget his name, but the guy that created Junkyard Joe, the robot. He's got like an army of more robots, and he's still trying to find Junkyard Joe, and Geiger is in trouble because it's a really big army and he's exhausting his energy. Last week I briefly mentioned how I had to catch up with Is Ted Okay and Royals. Well, I caught up, and Is Ted Okay was so good. It's probably one of my favorite series out right now, actually. Just the way that the mystery is slowly unfolding is perfect. And you start to learn more about the world that it's set in and what's the deal with Ted. And there's kind of a huge reveal at the end of issue 3 about Ted. Royals, I liked it. Not sure I loved it. Dialogue is amazing. It's just there's a couple nitpicks I guess I have, which is that they cheat at poker by one of them watching the game on TV and telepathically telling him what to do, what cards people have. I thought that they maybe be playing together and colluding and cheating that way, because I'm pretty sure TV has time delay for that very reason. I mean, someone could just be on their phone in the crowd and say, oh, he's got pocket queens. Not very realistic. And also in issue 2, spoiler warning, they get captured by the mob and are forced to do a mission for him, which he says is suitable to their skills, but I don't see how. It's pretty much just wants them to steal something. I don't see how it's connected at all to them being telepathically linked. It doesn't seem to matter at all. But I'll probably keep checking it out because I love stories where mob bosses get kicked. So hopefully we see that because they're both also MMA fighters. That just about wraps it up for last week's pulls. Now let's move on to what came out this week. I'll toss up a screenshot of my pull list from this week, and I'm going to start with DC and just kind of go over a little bit about each book. Absolute Green Arrow is the newest Absolute title. It's the #1. If you read Absolute Evil, then you already know, spoiler warning, that Oliver Queen died in that. So there's some explaining to do about how they can even have an issue 1 of Green Arrow. Next up is Lobo issue 3. I think there should be a new story starting in this one. Can't wait to see what they do. I'm sure whatever it is, it's going to look amazing, and it'll probably be really funny, so can't wait. Next up, we've got Batwoman issue 3. I've been really liking this, and not just because it's set in Greece, although that really helps. I really like the art too, but it seems like that's not to everybody's liking. I think it's more of a stylistic choice that they're doing though, where it's a bit muddled, almost as if it's through someone's memories or from the perspective of someone going through a bit of a mental crisis, which is what's happening with the main character. In any case, I don't see how you can complain about the character designs and the costumes. They are so good. Next up is Deathstroke, the Terminator, issue 3. I don't really know anything about Deathstroke. I've never read him before, but I feel like I don't really need to because this is so action oriented and the art is so good that that's enough to draw me in and get me excited for the next issue. So can't wait to read this. Moving on to Absolute Flash issue 15. This has been my most disappointing Absolute series so far, but the last 2 issues have started to really turn it around for me. And if this keeps it up, then it might be finally turning the corner and becoming a really good series like the rest of the Absolute line. Now for the last DC issue, it is End of Life issue 4. I did not expect to really like this so much after the first one. I thought the main character was kind of douchey, but he's been redeeming himself and it's been funny and the action's pretty good. I think the interactions with this guy, who's kind of a jerk, will be interesting to see. There's actually a good amount of Marvel this week. To start off, Jessica Jones Alias issue 3. It's been a lot of issue 3s this episode, huh? Issue 3s and 4s. But anyway, really like this. I like the team up between Jessica Jones and Typhoid Mary. The voice, I think, is perfect for Jessica, just based off of the TV show that I've seen, though. I'm not an expert on her. A lot happened in the last issue. We found out potentially, probably, who the killer they're after is, and they might have him in their grasp. So I'm curious to see what happens in this and if that is the main bad guy or if something else happens or if there's a whole change in the story. So this will be a big issue. Next up is The Punisher, issue 4. Last issue was actually my favorite issue of the series. We see a lot about Frank's motivation, what drives him to kill and go after bad guys, and he's literally trying to find his drive. He goes to where his family was killed and is literally laying down in the park, but he can't figure out what's stopping him still. And we eventually find out, spoiler alert, that Frank's former friend, Micro, when he was putting a chip in his head for the Kingpin in the previous series, he actually did something to make Frank averse to killing. And that's what's kind of driving him crazy after every time he kills people. Micro tells him how to turn that off, but it's really weird because it seems like Frank is just shooting himself in the head. That's literally what it looks like to me. I want to find out if I'm going crazy or if somehow that that really helps him. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Then there's Wolverine, Weapons of Armageddon, issue 4. This is connected to the Armageddon event, which I still don't really know what that is building up to be, but it's coming out next month. I really like this last issue in the whole series, mostly because Colton's in it from the Captain America series. He was introduced in the first arc of that as the Captain America of the War on Terror. And also in the last issue, we have Wolverine finally getting to the big bad guy, it seems, so we'll probably have a big fight and culmination to this. Not sure if it's the last one. I thought there was one more. Could be the last one. Just checked. It is the last one. Here we've got Rogue, issue 5. Haven't been a huge fan of this series. I like the art and I like the dialogue. I like the character a lot. But in terms of the plot, it seems like there's a lot of kind of dead ends she falls into. And then at the end, she literally meditates to find out the answers. Why didn't you do that to start instead of chasing down dead end leads? And her powers are supposed to be on the fritz in this, but literally every time she needs to do something, oh wow, yeah, great, that power works. Kind of lame. But this issue should be pretty interesting because she finally figured out what happened in the last one. So maybe we'll get some real progress. Sorcerer Supreme, issue 6. Say that 10 times fast. I've been really liking this series. The art has been absolutely peak every issue. The dialogue is a little bit weird and magical, mystical. The plot in the first arc was really good. It was about Wanda dealing with a Vishanti who feel like she's kind of usurping the throne of the Sorcerer Supreme and the magical items, and they try to take it back. The last issue was a bit of a standalone adventure where Dormammu invades one of the realms and Wanda goes to help. So this should be picking up a new plot in this one. So curious to see where that goes. Also, the magical combat is always really weird and cool in these two. Now we've got The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 29, legacy number 993. So we're getting very close to issue 1000. I've been really liking Amazing Spider-Man, and I'm curious to see how he starts dealing with the fallout of him being missing in space for so long, because we're finally getting into that, and he's dealing with the work consequences, where he was working on this fungus mushroom type project that was being used as scaffolding for buildings or something. there's a new villain being set up potentially that's kind of gross, but cool. And that's it for Marvel. So let's move on to the indies, starting with Odin, issue 1. I know very little about this actually. It's by James Tinian, who is writing Something is Killing the Children. I haven't really got into that yet, but it's got big rep, and I've got the omnibus ready to go. Pretty much about, I guess, a reporter is tagging along undercover with some white supremacists, and they try to summon a god or something. So I'm sure that ends up really well. It's a horror book, so I'm sure that's going to be really good. Zorro, issue 1. Honestly, just randomly picked this up. I did not plan on it, but what the hell? I'll check it out. It's Zorro. Moving on to Narco issue 3. I've been really liking this. Pretty much just a basic murder mystery. There's no superpowers. In fact, the main character has narcolepsy and passes out whenever he gets too excited, which he happened to pass out when the girl he was about to go on a date with was murdered, and they find her in his apartment. So he's prime suspect and is trying to clear his name. Next up is Nectar, issue 3. This is set back in the day in Salem. There's a bunch of butterflies that are descending upon this town, biting people, and the people that get bit start dancing and can't stop. The second issue was kind of slow. It didn't really push the plot forward too much. So I'm hoping this does a bit more for that, because I don't think it's a long run. This might be the second to last one, actually. Just checked. Yep, it is the second to last one. Now we've got Cyberpunk 2077 Chrome. Kind of mixed on this. This is going to be a big one to help me decide whether I really like it or not, because last issue was kind of slow and confusing. The characters tend to look similar, and it's hard to keep track when they go between people. Just kind of confusing. So I'm hoping this issue clears things up and makes more sense, I guess. Last up for the indies is Star Trek The Last Starship issue 7. Really good series. I've been so surprised by how good this is, but I guess I shouldn't have been. I guess the writers on this are awesome, but I have no clue what's going to happen. I'm not sure if they'll be able to get a happy ending out of this one, because the Federation seems pretty screwed. This actually made me a fan of Captain Kirk. I wasn't a fan. I'm a Captain Picard guy, but Captain Kirk has been really good in this. It's making a good argument for Captain Kirk. That's about it for this week's pulls, though. I'm going to take a quick peek at what's coming out next week and just really tell you guys what I am excited about. So without a doubt, what I'm most excited about is Exquisite Corpses number 13. If you have not been reading that, you're missing out. It's such a good horror book. If you don't know about it, it's pretty much just a battle royale that takes place in a small town. It's organized by the 13 most powerful families in the country, and whoever's champion wins, that family becomes the leader of the country for the next 5 years. And this is going to be the last one. That said, I'm hoping this ends with a twist, because if it doesn't, then pretty much the rich people win. I'm hoping that someone somehow messes up their secret cabal here and sticks it to the man. Because if not, then it's really just a bloody battle royale spectacle where the message is that, yeah, rich people always win and the poor people will always be their pawns in the system. This is also going to be made into a movie too, just so you know. Another issue I'm super excited for is Superman number 38. It's featuring Superboy Prime right now because Superman is missing after the DCKO events. I never really knew about Superboy Prime till the lead up into this and the DCKO event, but he's such a cool character. It's pretty much just a comic book fanboy that got turned into a superhero and gets to go live in the DC world. And I'm just going to kind of list off what I'm looking forward to from next week's pulls. Absolute Wonder Woman number 20, always. Corpse Knight number 2, if it's as good as the first one, got a lot of potential. Fireborn number 2, really like the art, feels like I'm reading a manga. Green Lantern, if it's actually focused on Kyle Rayner and not just 50-50 with Kyle and Hal, I like it a lot. The Hab number 2, first one was really good. It's a horror story about a rich guy who makes a nuclear shelter and people start getting either possessed or become under the influence of some parasite or poison in their water. Is That Okay? I talked about that earlier. So good, and it's just paced so well, so I can't wait. Justice League Unlimited number 19 should be interesting. The Justice League gave amnesty to the villains and is giving them a second chance to be good. The Sentry number 3, I'm expecting the Void's going to take over any minute now and start wreaking havoc. There's a bunch of other good books coming out, but that's what I'm most excited about. That just about wraps it up, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys have a beautiful new comic book day. Enjoy your pulls, and I hope to see you next week. See you later, comic friends. Peace.